Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video over here on my YouTube channel. The reason I say that is because I'm also pretty much everywhere else you could think you would need me. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter or X, Pinterest kind of, not really, Threads. Recently stopped using Blue Sky because I was getting like 1 like on there a month, so it wasn't worth the effort of copy and pasting from another platform. Anyway, welcome to my YouTube. Today I'm going to be talking about the new Housemaid is Watching book, which is the third book in the Housemaid series, if you didn't know that. The first 2 books, as we know, really enjoyed them. Is the third book as good? I'm going to get into it now. So, The Housemaid is Watching picks up pretty much 10 years or so, 11 years or so after the previous book, The Housemaid's Secret, finished. So, if you want a quick recap, and I'll try and do it relatively spoiler-free, though realistically, if you're watching a review of this book, it's because you've read the previous 2. But in The Housemaid 1, Millie, our main character, goes to work in a house and things are a bit dark and she ends up getting locked in a room and things aren't very happy. She then does manage to get out because obviously there's book 2 where she ends up working for a couple. Things aren't great there either, and then she escapes and she moves, and in The Housemaid is Watching we meet her 11 years later. She's moved in, she's got a husband, she's got 2 kids, she's moved into a new house, which the thing around the new house is it seems like she's got it just a little bit cheaper than she probably would have. It's like 10% cheaper than the asking price. So there's some questions around as to why she got it so cheap, which are kind of answered throughout the book, which is good. The other things that you want to talk about in this book are, is there going to be a twist? There is a twist. There is a decent twist. I wouldn't say it's on the same level as the first 2. I think the twists in the first, especially the first Housemaid, I was like, wow, amazing, like very impressive. Then the second one I kind of guessed it because you have the first book and you have your suspicions. This one I didn't guess it. It was very odd. It was like, wow, that's not who I thought that was going to be. Yeah, it still was okay, I guess is probably the best way of saying it. But what I've been doing is I read this in like 2 days. It is one of those books. It is actually a bit longer than the other Housemaids. You're looking at nearly 400 pages on this one, which is a fairly long for a thriller. Did it at times feel like it was just filled, so as a filler? A little bit, yeah. There felt like bits and pages and kind of internal monologues from Millie that weren't necessary, but you have to have that with thrillers, otherwise all you've got are the kind of cliffhanger endings for each page and then some other bits. Otherwise your thrillers end up being quite like dull or just intense, I guess. There's no kind of actual human beings in there. It's just people getting killed and being lost and having their houses burnt down and realising their husband's a serial killer. These sort of things. You've got to have the filler in the middle, and that's what happens in The Housemaid, of course. As I said, we pick up with Millie quite a bit later on than in the second book, and she's married, she's got a family, and she's settling down. She's hoping this life is going to be normal, but obviously we're reading about this in a book written by Frida McFadden, so that's not going to be the case. Quite early on, she sees a neighbour across the road who's staring out of her window, bit creepy, keeps staring at her, she keeps waving at her, and she's not waving back, she just keeps like turning the curtains, not very nice. There's another neighbour who's just a bit of a bellend, seems to have her child on a leash, bit weird, overprotective, think her past has ruined her, these sort of things. And then finally she has another neighbour who's next door who has a bigger house, is quite rich, and again unfortunately isn't particularly nice. She's a bit stuck up, she doesn't believe in having children, she doesn't believe that, I don't know, certain things, but the way she says things to Millie really kind of winds you up. She's like, oh Millie, you didn't tell me you dropped your cake on the way here, and Millie's like, I didn't drop my cake. This is how I make cakes. And those sort of comments, those kind of like horrible, and she does it on purpose, I don't know, horrible person. She's quite involved in it as well. But so basically all of her neighbours aren't particularly nice. The house is lovely, her family's lovely, the 2 children are really interesting. So she's got 2 children now and both have quite strong personalities. One's very outgoing, very friendly, not the biggest achiever at school, but is kind of the sports person or the sports child. And then you've got the girl who is the intellectual, quite quiet, worried about not making friends, these sort of things. And they fit into their roles really well. And we do hear stuff from them as well. They're not just these kind of children that are there for the sake of, I don't know, McFadden wanted to write in a family. They actually do have moments and do have plots and some big moments that you think, oh my gosh, is this leading somewhere with them? She's also married. I don't want to give away who she's married to in case you've not read the previous 2 books, but he is essentially this ridiculously good-looking guy who's also ridiculously nice, which nobody in the neighbourhood believes. Everybody thinks because he's so good-looking, he's a bit of an arse. Because he's kind of, I don't know, quite big. I think he's generally quite big, or I perceive him to be quite big. People think he might be a bit of a brute, but again, he's not. He's very nice. He does come from a background where you answer aggression with aggression, these sort of things. So there's questions to be answered there as to whether That might form some opinions on him. Yeah, it's good. My review of it, so I've written my review. If you don't know, I have a blog. Go check out my blog, lukeharkness.com. I've written my review for it, and in my kind of summary, I summarised that if you enjoyed the first 2 books, you're either going to love or hate this, and that's a very difficult, odd thing to say. It depends what you loved about the first 2 books. If you loved that there was a twist in the middle, it was amazing, it shocked you, there was high intensity, all this sort of stuff, you may not love this. It doesn't quite have that. There are large parts of family moments. There's a lot of unanswered questions, which McFadden does well. There's like, how has this thing come to be? Surely that's the only reason this negative thing has happened. Then it gets explained later that, oh no, this is the reason that happened. You're like, oh, okay, that covers that. That happens a lot, but there's not a lot of fast-pacedness. The twist, as I said, didn't happen early on enough for me and wasn't impressive enough. It is shocking. It's like I didn't see it coming, but at the same time, I was almost like, I don't care, because the reason that the twist happens is quite oddly explained. I don't know how to explain it. So something happens late on in the book, and then suddenly it turns out it's not the person you thought it was, rather than it being something that happened throughout the whole book and it turns out. Do you know what I mean? Those sort of twists where something's building. It was just something suddenly happened, and then the twist was like, oh, it's not the person that we've been told it was. But I don't know how to explain that, but you get a general gist. So if you're into that, you may not love it. Though you may. I saw quite a few reviews on Goodreads of people saying literally McFadden's written about nothing in here. Nothing really happens. And I can feel that. However, if you've become attached to Millie, if you've become attached to the family that she essentially builds in this book, you'll love it. This is probably the most down-to-earth, family-loving kind of housemaid book yet, which for the 3rd book in the series, I'm a big fan of. Now, there's a question as to whether McFadden's just going to keep doing these, because a 10, 11 year jump in time is massive. If she'd been doing it yearly and she'd found some way of kind of making Millie a serial, whatever it is she does, again, I'm trying to speak to you as if you've never read a housemaid book, then that would be fine. But 10, 11 years is quite a lot, and then it's going to be interesting to see if there's another one. But if not, this is the most wholesome in the series so far. This is the one that I was most impressed with, the one that I most felt like, okay, now I actually like Millie as a character. I like her little family. I like what's going on here. I would read about them doing pretty much anything else again. And that's kind of the best thing I can say about this book, is it really is the best family book, the book that most felt like it was part of a series. Book 2, if you've read it, which obviously you have because you're watching me talk about this one, really felt like McFadden had written 2 versions of The Housemaid and then just published one after the other. It didn't really feel like a sequel. And there is an argument to be made that you could read all of the books without having read any of the previous books. They're not sequential. There is a character in this that you meet in a previous one, but it's not that obvious. You could probably pick this up and be like, okay, I know who he is now. I know his past, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, there's that element to it. Other than that, I think, yeah, The Housemaid is watching as a solid book. If you liked the previous Housemaid, you will probably like this. I am becoming a bit of a McFadden fan. Yes, it's not the best writing. We're not talking about John Steinbeck. We're not talking about George Orwell. That's not what's happening here. We are talking about somebody who has absolutely nailed writing short, snappy, interesting chapters with strong female leads, with powerful careers, who are bulgy, who have things happen to them that would, for most other people, bring them down. Do you know what I mean? And then there's a twist, and the twists are often worth it. So that's my review of The Housemaid is Watching. A bit of a shorter video than usual because I've not been on for a while. I've had a bit of a health thing going on. If you can't notice, over here on the right side of my face, I have a scar. I have some stitches in at the moment, which I'm taking out in a couple of days. I've been going I went to a biopsy last Wednesday at the dermatologist's at my hospital, which is actually where I work, which is quite fun, to have a look at a mark. So I've had, you've probably noticed it, a brown mark on my face for a while, which I don't think I've been that worried about. I went to go see a dermatologist about some other moles I've got on my body, and they said they're all fine, but there is something in this one that I just want to get checked, and therefore I had to have a biopsy. If you don't know what biopsy is, it's where they extract part of your skin to then do tests on it to see if it's like fine. And I've got 12 weeks to wait until my results. I'm not that worried. No one around me has been that worried really. None of it is really signs that there's something to worry about or anything's progressing fast, so I'm not too worried about it. But I thought I'd just update you as to why I've not been here for a while. If you really ever want to follow me for any of that sort of stuff, just go on my TikTok and Instagram. I generally post on my stories about those sort of things anyway. But more importantly, that was my review of The Housemaid is Watching. Let me know if you've read this. Let me know if you've read the previous series. I expect this one's going to be a 50-50. I think people are either going to love it or people aren't going to love it. So let me know your thoughts. Until then, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video. If you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe. I have a goal of getting 500 subscribers by September. It's some app I have that says you can definitely do that if you keep posting regularly. So I'm going to prove it right and do that. So if you've not yet subscribed, subscribe. If you know someone that likes books, share my YouTube with them. That would be a massive help as well. If not, a like and a comment down below are also fantastic, because that then pushes it into the Discover page on YouTube anyway. But until then, thank you for watching and goodbye.